likely damaged, and we have the different components that make up the spinal nerve and the nerves that are going to the thoracic wall. So you have dorsal roots, ventral roots, the cutaneous branches of the dorsal rami, cutaneous branches of the ventral rami, and rami communicantes. So if you remember, we get the dorsal roots, and the dorsal roots are purely what? Motor or sensory? Sensory. And your ventral roots are purely motor. Where are they mixing? In the spinal nerve. Then you're going to have branches coming off. Soon as the spinal nerves form, it's going to divide again. And you're going to call those branches what? Rami, right? Dorsal ramus or rami, and ventral. So they are carrying mixed fibers, motor and sensory. The cutaneous branches of the dorsal rami, where will you find those? In the back. The muscles and the skin, the true muscles of the back. But it's asking about the lateral side of the thoracic wall. So it can't be your dorsal rami. Your rami communicans or communicantes would be the fibers that are going to get the ventral ramus on and off of the sympathetic trunk. So your only answers is that as that ventral ramus comes around following the inferior border of the ribs, it's going to give off some lateral cutaneous branches. And it is those lateral cutaneous branches from my ventral rami that is going to cause all of this pain for the person who fell on the barbed wire and have lacerations in this area. Some people thought it could have been, what's another good answer, that is going to be carrying sensory back to the central nervous system. Out of those answers that I have given you. The what? The dorsal. Some people say it could have been the dorsal roots. Can somebody tell me why the dorsal roots, which will carry the sensory back to the spinal cord, but why is the dorsal roots not the single best answer in this case? It has what?
You have problems in the other places the dorsal root innervates, so like everything upstream from the dorsal root will have issues. The dorsal root
And I think you answered that same question back in IM, didn't you? Maybe. Okay, so is the location really? The location of where the lacerations occurred. And this far out or superficial, it has to be the cutaneous branches of the ventral rami. Imagine how deep you would have to be to get to my dorsal roots. That's really close to the spinal cord. You're going to have a cut that's way deeper, all the way down close to the spinal cord. So basically, I see what you were saying. Yes. Okay. I think some of you even asked Dr. Raines, and he asked me, like, is this another answer possible? Okay, so number 2, oh, this one had a lot of controversy. And it is a play on words here, and I thought you were going to catch it. And that's the plate right there, what I want to discuss. The one with the reflections, the one that's superior. Yes, that one right there. So you can see the gold outline is the representing the heart, the silhouette of the heart, and you see the apex of the heart. And you know your auscultations, your heart sounds from the valves that are projected through specific spaces on this thoracic wall. But the key here, and I wrote an explanation in addition to the rationale here, pulsations versus auscultation. That's what threw everybody off. What you doing like this while you doing it through? So I had to go back and give the definition of each one of those. So if the case says 59-year-old male admitted to the hospital with severe chest pain during examination, rhythmic pulsation to the chest wall at the left fifth intercostal space is noted in the mid-clavicular line, clavicle midway through in the fifth space. So that would put you about at the level of the apex of the heart. But everybody was always focusing on heart sounds. And so when it says pulsating, what area of the heart is pulsating to cause the pain, then you would get the apex of the heart. I'm sorry about that. That one word threw everything off. Number 3, and I have to tell you a backstory or a story to go along with this question. MS4s, some MS4s are rotating through the gross anatomy lab, and they were all virtual when they came through first year, and they didn't go into the gross anatomy lab. So I was trying to get them up to date, saying like, this is a great relationship here. A bolus of food is swallowed and is caught in the thoracic region. What chamber of the heart is going to be compressed because of this bolus of food? And they said, we see that question on all exams, that same concept. We see it throughout the external exams that we see. So question number 3, it reversed it, but it's the same concept. So it says, a man admitted to the hospital with pain and on swallowing, and the image reveals a dilated left atrium. Which structure is most likely to be compressed by the expansion of the left atrium to result in the patient's symptoms? So instead of saying the bolus of food is in the esophagus, now they are saying the left atrium has expanded, and what is it going to compress? The esophagus. The artery of the conus, 99.9% of the students, you all got it right, so we're not going to go over that one.
And these are all going to be on the summit as well. You think?
Very close. The artery of conus. Okay, so you know where the conus arteriosus is? You do? What chamber? I hear right atrium, I hear right ventricle. You don't know? It's between the right atrium and the right ventricle? I'll go with the right ventricle. Is that what you said? Okay, the smooth area, as when the right ventricle contracts, the blood flows up to that supraventricular crest. You still trying to play with getting it recorded? Okay, I was trying to find a plate to show the internal features of the heart and show this supraventricular crest. Mm-hmm. Why is it going crazy on me? That's a little bit of it right here. Can you see the pointer? That's the supraventricular crest. Supra above ventricle and the crest. Now it goes to the smooth area, and that is the conus arteriosus. Now, that's the wrong side. Right here, conus arteriosus, right here. And that's the crest. So this must be my right ventricle. So the question says, 62-year-old male was admitted to the hospital with intensive left chest pain. The ECG and the echo revealed myocardial infarction, pulmonary valve regurgitation. Emergency angiograph is performed and provides evidence that the artery supplying the upper portion of the anterior right ventricular free wall is occluded. Which of the following arteries is more likely to be occluded? And that we have circumflex, your anterior interventricular, your posterior interventricular, the artery of the conus, and the acute marginal. So we know where the LAD is going to supply blood to where? The widowmaker, the anterior wall of the left ventricle and the septum. The posterior is going to give the posterior wall and the posterior side of the interventricular septum. Yes. And then it's going to give a branch off to the AV nodal, AV node, or the AV nodal branch. So the artery of the conus is coming from where? It's a branch off of the right. So now we know where the conus arteriosus is and the artery of the conus. Again, not much information is ever presented on this artery, but it does exist. So it's not mentioned that much. Yes. Mm-hmm. So when she thinks of the free wall, you're thinking about this wall that's being reflected, this part right here, on the external surface of the heart. The free wall could also be extended to this area right here. Yes, yes. It could be talking about internal structures in that ventricle. Question. Okay, what you see now, you can interpret that as posterior, but remember this thing is like a conal or a funnel. So it has an anterior part to it, and I think that'll help your question too. So you're just seeing the posterior side of this conus arteriosus, but it has an anterior wall to it also. Will that help you? Yeah, okay, I think that is the hang up. These questions have some little trickery to it too. I think I've covered them. Make sure, if I had to say one more thing, there was a question that people, am I missing a page? About that, I think you need, where did he go? Get back down here. There was a question that says, and I thought I was not going to take up all this time, the transverse pericardial sinus. I think I had to go back and adjust that question. Because if you put the probe between the transverse, between the, between your ascending aorta and your pulmonary trunk, and then the superior vena cava, and you put the probe across it, the base of the heart, and it says something about the surgeon was going to clamp the vessels off, and it says the answer choices was the ascending aorta and the pulmonary trunk, and I think some people said superior vena cava. So right here, if I superior vena cava, ascending aorta, pulmonary trunk. So I went back and adjusted that. Because if the heart surgeon was going to do a transplant, you could technically clamp or ligate that superior vena cava. But I don't think you're going to have that kind of confusion in your summative. I'm going to get out of the way for the next person because we're already 15 minutes behind. Yes. And you should have gotten credit back when it was asking about what vessels were going to be ligated. And there are 3